Let's build a lineup to put into these contests that have millions of dollars to first place, and let's use the strategy that I used to win $30,000 and $70,000 earlier this year on Draftkings. And let's do it not now, but let's do it right now. So welcome into all the fellas out there, and this is what we're going to be doing today is a first look. So this is the first time I'm looking at this about a week and a half before the Super Bowl starts. We'll have more content of final lineup, but this is a good first test as I've looked at all the usage. We put that video out, all the usage heading into the Super Bowl for these players, getting an idea of projections and rankings and how that's all going to play out. Now I want to look at some lineup construction early on and build out a lineup that I believe will be competitive in these fields. Now, some of the most important stuff before we start to build through this lineup, and I'm looking at these salaries for the first time, you're going to be getting cheap players. And what does that mean, cheap players? You see a Cooper Kupp's 11,600, that is cheap. And to you, that might be really expensive. Maybe you don't play a lot of DFS or a lot of showdowns. Cooper Kupp a month and a half ago was over $13,000. They're making these salaries cheaper because they want everybody who's playing a $6 million, biggest I've ever seen, Millie Maker, and a separate Millie Maker, a $4,000 buy-in. They want whoever's playing, there's going to be a lot of new people playing. They want those people to have an easy time building lineups or an easier time. If they put Cooper Kupp at 13 grand, you got to start playing guys that might not even step on the field, and that's not fun for all these new people. Maybe that's you. So we all end up benefiting from that because now there's a lot of different lineup combinations that are actually in play that we can build, and lineup combinations are very important. Last year, the winning lineup with Gronk as the captain and multiple touchdowns and Brady in there and all that stuff, that was duped so many times. You had no chance of winning $1 million. If you actually want to try and win the first place prize or first place in whatever contest you play, you have to build a unique lineup. And spending all the money, I hate to break it to you, is not a way to do that. I don't want to leave no money or $100, only $200 on the table. I'm trying to leave like $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 on the table because if I win, if I'm entering a contest with 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 people, I want to be able to realize my expectation. And what does exactly that fancy term means? It means that if you're entering that type of a contest, you better be getting paid out $1 million if you win the whole thing to first, not splitting it with so many people. That is hard to do. You have to start building unique lineups that not a lot of other people are going to do because they either want to spend all the money or they're just not on certain guys. I think we can start to think about that while going through this. And you might say, oh, but Sal, if I split with 100 people and I still am able to take down 20, 30, 50 grand from this Millie Maker for winning first, I'm fine with that. And that's great. Yes, money is money. But the whole point of this is you should not be entering this contest then. If you are entering this contest and you are automatically going to be splitting with a lot of people, there are much different contests with less people in them that you can enter and have a better chance of winning first place solo than this one. This has 400,000 people in it. If you're splitting it 1,000 or 2,000 ways, you never had an opportunity to win $1 million in the first place. Might as well play a different contest that gets you a better payout for your buy-in and your odds of winning based on the amount of people in it. So I'm looking at this now, and yeah, I'm just seeing cheap options here. Like normally, if you're a good quarterback, you're in the $10,000 range. We have two great quarterbacks on this slate. Cooper Kupp normally is $13,000, so we're getting a significant discount here in the flex of just $11,600. I kind of want to automatically put Cooper Kupp in the flex. His captain ownership, he's going to be one of the better captain options. There's probably going to be 5 or 6 captains, probably 4 or 5 captains I get exposure to in my final 150 lineups. And I expect Cooper Kupp to probably come in around 20% owned, which is fair. I think it'll probably be a little bit over owned. So let's just put him in the flex spot for now. If you put Cooper Kupp in the flex spot, a man who's averaging over 28 Draftkings points per game, a guy who in his 2 playoff games so far this season in the last 2 weeks has 182 yards, 140 yards, 3 touchdowns, right? Just absolutely dynamite. And now he arguably might have his best matchup. Like the 49ers secondary isn't great, but the way that they scheme it, it's a little bit better, I believe, than what Cincinnati has. Cincinnati, their secondary, at least safeties wise, and Awuzie being better this year is solid, but you can get matchup advantages, especially in the slot where Cooper Kupp thrives. So Cooper Kupp will be in this lineup, and let's just throw him in there. You get over this is crazy. You still have $7,600 to spend. Now I want to talk about some ways to get different, and we can start off by getting different with getting maybe a lower owned captain who also has upside. I don't know his price yet, but I want to see where Tyler Boyd comes in. We talked about him in the stats you need to know. What you need to know before betting on the Super Bowl playing DFS. That video dropped yesterday based on when I'm recording this right now. So be sure to check that out. And one of the big things in there was that this is the best spot Tyler Boyd will be in yet. And now what does that mean, the best spot he'll be in yet? It means that against the Raiders, it was single high safeties. That means you attack the outside receivers. Guys will have one-on-ones. Against the Titans, it was terrible outside cornerback play. You attack there. Against the Kansas City Chiefs, L'Jarius Sneed in the slot was probably their best cornerback. Oh yeah, he's on Tyler Boyd. Outside cornerbacks are banged up, and Fenton coming back from injury. Tyrann Mathieu, his safety, being banged up. And oh yeah, Ward was also banged up. So they attacked there, and that's what they did. You get T. Higgins over 100 yards. They shadowed Jamar Chase, so T. Higgins had one-on-ones. Now you have Tyler Boyd in a matchup where this Rams defense the last 2 or 3 years has been known and kind of changing the game back to 2 high safeties for putting 2 safeties back up there, right? These Tampa 2s are just 2 highs in general, or cover 2. So what's that going to mean? It means the underneath routes are more wide open. And with CJ Uzomah battling injury, Tyler Boyd potentially being the only guy who's sure-handed out there, You might not see downfield usage, and that's not great, but you might see 6-7 catches in a game. It's there. But you might see 6-7 targets and or catches on these lower targets in a game, and touchdown upside, of course, comes into play for a guy who had 4 touchdowns per game entering into last week's game or the Titans game. So let's find where Tyler Boyd's price point is, and let's put him in the like I'm going to be liking Tyler Boyd. So I'm not seeing him on this whole first page. Are you? So we're below $8,000. We don't have Tyler Boyd. So Tyler Boyd, you get T. Higgins, which looks like a nice price point of 76. You get Cam Akers, and then you get the backup quarterbacks, and we are still not at Tyler Boyd. Is this real? Tyler Boyd is below the backups at 5,400. I get it. Tyler Boyd right now has like 67 total yards in the playoffs over 3 games. It's not great. He has like 9 targets, no downfield usage. He has that touchdown against the Raiders. Yeah, the controversial touchdown with the refs blowing the whistle. I understand all of that, but again, the matchups were not to take advantage of the underneath stuff in those games. They weren't. You factor in the quick pass rush and the great dominating pass rush of Leonard Floyd, of Von Miller, of Aaron Donald, and having to get the ball out quick now. Very quick, Joe Burrow. He had the worst pass blocking grade of the entire year for any quarterback in his game against the Chiefs. Any quarterback ever. Not just the postseasons, this entire season, and he won that game. He's going to have to get the ball out quick. That's what he was doing in that game. Boyd might be the guy to take advantage based on how the defense plays. Now, before we keep putting this lineup together, and it comes together pretty nicely as I'm recording this part after, it comes together pretty nicely. You're going to want to see. I want to let you know about the sponsors of the program, PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks have been a sponsor of the show, our number 1 sponsor for about a year now. I love the platform, right? Whether you're in New York, California, Texas, like I'm located in Texas, you can play on this. Even though it is player props, you can play. It is legal here. It is technically fantasy based. So you take the over-under on player props, whether it's receptions, yards, whether it's another sport, baskets, 3-pointers, right? Or it's fantasy points. And that's what we're taking right here. Tyler Boyd over 9.5 fantasy points. I like Tyler Boyd. I have Tyler Boyd for over 10 fantasy points in this Super Bowl. So I like Tyler Boyd. I like him to see the most targets that he's seen in the postseason so far. We take the over. And then Matthew Stafford over 4.5 rushing yards. He's over his rushing yard props in back-to-back games and his postseason games. He's going to take off. If Trey Henderson is able to get some pressure on him, he forces him to scramble up the middle like you've seen in his past 2 games. Do that one time, and we get some nice usage out of Mr. Matthew Stafford. So if you take those 2 props, the Stafford rushing, the Tyler Boyd fantasy, and you use the code SAL, you get a free bet, free instant bet matched up to $100. So there you go. Limited time offer. Use it for the Super Bowl. You can take a bunch of other props after that. They're running great promotions. And not only you, but send in your group message. Tell your family and friends you're watching at the bar or the Super Bowl party. They can all get the free bet up to $100. Again, I'm located in Texas, California, other states that are not legal yet for sports betting. This is take advantage of it. Not now, but right now. PrizePicks.com, code SAL. So let's throw a very cheap Tyler Boyd, relatively cheap, right? $8,100 captain Tyler Boyd. We still have $7,500 per player to spend. Like that starts to look really good. Now, one way of getting different where a lot of people will do this, if they have a Bengal in the captain spot, they will play Joe Burrow. Let's do the opposite here. A lot of the times it will be correlated, yes, but a lot of the times you will get a more unique lineup when you don't do that. Let's play the opposite quarterback, the guy who has a higher team total, the favorite, the guy who I think, one, he's going to have more time to throw, probably sees more deep passes. Last week, he attempted 8 deep passes in that game in a 78% true completion percentage, Matthew Stafford. So if we throw an expensive Stafford into this lineup, we still have a good amount of money left over. We have $6,500. Another thing that is normally not correlated together because it just doesn't correlate well, but things that don't correlate well on a massive slate like this can work in our advantage for a more unique lineup and a lower-owned lineup. It's going to be, if you have a Tyler Boyd or any guy in the captain spot, usually Joe Burrow is in that. So check, we don't put Joe Burrow. Check, we're getting a little bit different with Matthew Stafford. The second thing is if you have a player in the captain spot, typically you don't see the opposing defense against that player. So Tyler Boyd in the captain spot, it's going to be very other people when they build your lineups, and you can think about this too. When they're going through it, they're going to go, I don't want to play the Rams defense because if Tyler Boyd goes off, that hurts my Rams defense. Yes, it does, but not necessarily the case. Tyler Boyd can have a 2-touchdown game and the Rams defense can have a pick 6, and how does that hurt them? The Rams defense can return a punt, right? The Rams defense can have 7 sacks or 9 sacks like the Titans did, right? And they can still get you there. So let's throw in this lineup the Rams defense in there, who I assume is cheap, right? We're looking at this for the first time. We kind of got down to Van Jefferson's down here as a cheap option. Sony Michel, probably played 25-30% of the snaps, depending on what happens with Darrell Henderson. Higbee and Uzomah, we have to track them. Higbee, they said there's a chance he plays. Uzomah's, I think we're still awaiting testing as of this recording. Didn't look great. The kickers are more expensive than the defenses. Let's go to the Rams defense, who obviously has a fantastic matchup against the offensive line of this Cincinnati team. So now we get 3 Rams players in here. We have Tyler Boyd in the captain spot, and we have $8,000 per position to spend. So this is starting to look really, really good. Now, a way that I ended up winning earlier this year, I ended up winning $30,000 and then $70,000 on showdown slates, on 2 separate showdown slates. I used the exact same method that I'm going to use right now, and it was putting a captain, a wide receiver captain from a team, not playing his quarterback because unless people own it, and then putting another pass catcher from that team in your lineup. So you have 2 pass catchers from a team without his quarterback, and one of them is in the captain. Not a lot of people build that way, but of course it can work out. And I can test that because I've taken down about $100K from doing that. So Let's do it by going to now. I don't think we'll be able to afford Jamar Chase. He's probably like close to 10K. Yeah, Jamar Chase is 10,400. But we can fit T Higgins. What do we have? We have 8,050 left over, right? So we can fit T Higgins into this easily. So this is kind of how I built those lineups. It's a build that not a lot of people own, but it still has a lot of high upside. So $8,500 left now for our final flex spot. So, I mean, let's just see what we have out there. Odell's out there for $8,400. We can afford Odell right at $8,400. The problem there is you leave $100 on the table. Yes, this is a unique lineup build, but if you're only leaving $100 on the table, people using optimizers to build 150 lineups, people in general like to spend all their money, it's going to be duped. So if you place a lineup that we just built with Odell in it, it's going to be duped a ton of times. You're never going to have a chance of winning $1 million. Now, if you're somebody who's playing in cash games, head-to-heads, 50-50s, a smaller tournament, that's fine to maybe get away with the luxury box. Maybe it only has 200 people. Maybe you can get away with it with only maybe 0, probably closer to like 1 to 5 people having that lineup. So you can go there. Like Odell obviously looks good. He'll project out probably better for a Van Jefferson on his own team. If you put Cam Akers in there, who's not a terrible option by any means, right? You leave $2,100 on the table. So, I mean, that's a completely fine lineup, leaving $2,000 on the table. What if you left a lot of money on the table, right? You go down a little bit more. You can get to Van Jefferson, who is still running a lot of routes, playing a lot of snaps, just not seeing a lot of targets, but he saw 5 last week, 3 20-plus yard targets. All that has to happen is one of those have to hit for him to have a 2-catch, 40-yard and a touchdown game, and he's sitting there with 12 points. Not bad at the price tag. That leaves $3K on the table. I'm starting to like this. Not a lot of people will build lineups like this. Can we leave just like a ton of money on the table? I think we can. Like, you can start to just go down to the tight ends. Who's going to be the healthy tight end? If it's Tyler Higbee, I like Higbee in this game to run 30 to 35 routes and probably see 5 to 7 targets with red zone usage. If it's Kendall Blanton looked really nimble, looked really good for a massive, tall, huge tight end, 6'6". He was schemed in on screens, so you can go to Kendall Hinton instead. And I mean, Cam Akers is a solid option. You know he's going to touch the ball, and he left over $2,000 on the table. But if you go down to Kendall Hinton, maybe over Van Jefferson, you hope for the touchdown. You hope for a similar usage to last week where he saw 6 targets in like 3 quarters. That leaves $3,900 on the table. So this is a build that I can get behind. Early on, we're a week and a half away. We'll come back with a final thoughts lineup and obviously the live stream before the Super Bowl. A lot of content dropping here. Player props, overall bets, overall breakdown of the slate, the matchups, all that type of stuff. Every single day there's going to be content. We already have the usage, the things you need to know before even starting your analysis for the Super Bowl. But I think this is a good way to start DFS lineups and thoughts there. Obviously, if you're going to be taking any of those lineups right now, they're going to be massively duped. The whole point of this was not to, by any means, give out lineups. That's very tacky in my opinion. It was for me to build out my thought process for the first time, looking at these salaries. That was my first time. Build out my thought process on how this can work. And as I suspected going in with most big slates, it's very easy to build lineups on this because DraftKings wants everybody who's playing to enjoy their time and then maybe, hey, play again or tell somebody else. So there you go. There is a first look, initial thoughts, salary breakdowns or lineup breakdowns, all that type of stuff for the Super Bowl. Be sure before you go to use that code SAL on prizepicks.com. Limited time. Tell your friends, everybody watching the Super Bowl with, you get a free bet, instantly free bet up to $100. Be sure to check it out. Use the code SalPrizePicks.com. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to keep your eyes out on all the content dropping basically every single day for the Super Bowl until the Super Bowl is over on this channel. And I'll see you where I see you, gang. I'll see you in the next one.